Good evening. Oh, no, I'm a teacher, and if you don't give it up better than that, I'm gonna be boring, okay? Good evening. That's it. I'm sorry, I am a teacher, as is my wife, and so we're gonna start with the pretest. So if you don't have anything to write with, then just keep it in your head, and I'm gonna ask you 4 questions. And so you can keep this information in your head if you want, but here are the 4 questions, all right? Do not share with anybody else, don't blurt this out, but on average, how much does the brain weigh in pounds? So just write that answer down someplace or put it in your mind. On average, how much does the brain weigh? Okay, question 2. Going off that, what percentage of your total body weight do you think the brain is? So if you thought the brain weighed about 10 pounds, and I look out and I see most of you are about 100 pounds, okay? So what would the percentage of your brain, of your total body weight, would it be? 10%. So work in that somewhere. That's question 2. Are you looking up the information, sir? Because I don't... So are you texting? Oh, I'm taking notes. Yeah, the great middle school lie. I'm taking notes. Okay, good. Question 3. Of all the water you consume, what percentage of the water is consumed by the brain? Of all the water you drink, what percentage is consumed by the brain? And guess all you want. Last question. I might do one more. Next question. Almost the same question, but of all the food that you eat, what percentage does the brain consume? Of all the food that you eat, what percentage does the brain consume? And you guys look really smart. We'll do one more question. At what age is the brain mature enough to remember a random list of 7 things? At what age is the brain mature enough to remember a random list of 7 things? Yo, back row, can you hear me? So if we stop being heard, just, okay? Because I'm not sure about the acoustics yet, and this isn't a microphone, it's just some big thing on my tie that goes with the recording. All right? Now, a really good technique that we do with our kids is we do a 30-second pause for reflection. We have them turn to each other and use part of their brain, because the more senses you use, the better. So I want you to turn to one other person and share your answers of those questions, and then we'll go over them. Are you correcting?
No. I'm writing down my answers.
Okay.
You're late. I didn't get
And stop. Now, we personally believe that you probably shouldn't do a session on the teenage brain until you get yours through the teenage years. Because even though we kind of are, I don't hate to use the word experts because we're not from 50 miles away, but we've done a lot of research and a lot of reading. There were still times when our middle schooler, our teenager said something to us and we were like, remember, remember, and you still wanted to go, okay? So, but we did get them through. This is our daughter who got married in October. Wonderful, wonderful recent college graduate from Clemson. And so did she give me a year off from a college tuition? No, she gave me 3 months. And then on the far side over there is our son, who is a sophomore at Clemson. So if there's any great thing that we've done that deals with the brain, is we managed to get them through. And I will tell you, there was a point when my daughter was getting ready to go to college where we almost sent her early. Okay, so we understand that, and so that's part of the process we go through. Would you like to see the answers to your questions?
Yes.
Okay, how much does the brain weigh? Call it out.
3.
About 3 pounds. Okay. Now, if you'd like to know, the male brain weighs more than the female brain, and that's because it's denser. Take that any way you want. All right. The brain is about 70% water, but it consumes 30% of all the water you drink. So if we go back, your brain is about 2% of your total body weight, but it needs to consume 30% of all the water you consume. And since the brain is 70% water, what do middle school brains and all brains need to work well? Water. Thank you. So at mealtime, if they want to drink something else, they have a glass of water first, then they can have something else. If they want a glass of juice, water first, then the glass of juice. And it takes, if there's a big test coming up, it takes 24 hours to hydrate. So if the big test is on Tuesday, they need to start drinking extra water on Monday. Okay? All right. Of all the, it's 2% of your body, but it consumes about 20% of your calories. Which is interesting. If they aren't drinking during the day and they don't have a decent lunch, the brain will not be as efficient for the afternoon classes, nor for any activity in the afternoon or early evening. So the nutrition is important. And we'll talk more about that as we go. What I want you to do is take your hand right here, and I want you to put it in the back of your head. Okay? That area right there is what we call the original brain, or the primal brain, and that's all thought goes through that part. Okay, now point to the middle of your head. Okay, that is where the amygdala is, and that's the emotional brain. And now make a fist like this, and find the spot on your forehead where that fits. Okay, you guys look great, by the way. Okay, now tap on that. All right, that is a bone, thank you, that protects the thing that makes us different from animals. See, animals have the first brain like we do, and they have an emotional brain like we do. All right. What's interesting is, has it ever happened at a point in your life where your emotional brain captured the rest of your brain, and you were so mad or so angry you couldn't think straight? If you have more than one kid, you'd Susan, Bobby, okay, two, I got you. All right, so and that can happen, and that's one of the reasons why we talk about the stress that goes on in the middle school brain. If they're upset, it is possible that the emotional brain will not let the thought get to the neocortex, which is this part right here. The neocortex, or new brain, is the part where it helps. Now, I used to coach soccer for this particular district. Anybody else do soccer, have their kids do soccer? Okay, what part of the forehead do we have them use to hit a soccer ball? Yes, the part of the forehead that separates us from animals. Anybody see a problem with that? I used to tell my kids I wanted the ball to bounce first before they headed it. Unless, of course, it was like a cross for a goal. And if it's for a goal, I'm willing to take the brain damage. So it's, priorities are important. Some of our information comes from Dr. Jay Geed, and we'll talk a little bit more about him. So if you want to do some research on your own. Also, we have in the handout, there's books you can read, because we can't cover everything at this point. What he did originally was take thousands of young people and begin to study their brains. Now, we had to wait for the technology to arrive. Because before about 1970, the only way we could study a brain was if it was damaged. And we don't want to use x-rays on healthy brains, so it was the fMRIs that enabled us to start looking at brains from very young through the 20s. And what we discovered is early on, there's this massive growth. Now, some of you may find this amazing. Okay, the teenagers are more like toddlers than adults because of what happens here. What we know is that between the ages of 9 and 11, the brain destroys 20% of all the connections it's ever made. Now, I want that to sink in. The brain destroys 20% of all the connections. So, in essence, middle school brains are damaged. Does this surprise anybody? Okay. What we don't know is always what's going to be cut off or destroyed. So if you think about it for a second, a 7th grader could be going down the hall to their locker to get something and have whatever they need just destroyed. And so they're at their locker going, what am I here for? And then a hormone pops out and they go, oh, that's kind of cool. And then the girl they like is walking with somebody else. And we expect them to get what they're supposed to get and get back to class? It's not going to happen. Because that's what's all going on in the brain at the same time. What we do know is that used connections will flourish and unused connections will be cut. Anybody a gardener? Okay. What do you do with a bush that's not growing very well one year?
Prune it hard.
You prune it hard. So you're kind of like, okay. That's exactly what the brain's doing. It's pruning, because after you prune, what happens to the bush the next year?
Then you get a lot of new growth.
You get new growth, and it's thicker and richer, which is exactly what the brain is doing. It is destroying things it doesn't need and coming back thicker and richer. So the connections are fewer, but faster. And that's kind of a good thing, because when they get out of middle school, they need to decide, you know, I'm going to be good at math, I need to focus more on math kinds of things and then be an engineer. Or I'm going to be good at this particular kind of, or I'm going to be a musician, I need to focus on those kinds of things. So it is a good thing that the middle school brain is being destroyed. It just drives us nuts. This is an example of what I'm talking about. We notice as we go through for the ages that the brain actually is thicker and richer. So we just wanted to share that with you, and this is a quick one. All right. When we show this picture to middle schoolers and they see that, what they think is going on? Okay. We adults are pretty good at being able to say we're not sure. This is actually a picture taken at a science fair, and that is a judge saying, can you please explain this part of your poster? But middle schoolers, if I had a group of middle schoolers, they would say almost unison, he's being yelled at. That's not what happened. That's what they see, that's what they interpret. And this is really significant you catch this. Middle schoolers are not very good at emotional adult understanding. They're not there yet. And so they see anger when there isn't. They hear yelling when there isn't. Okay? If this was my student, and actually she is, if this was my student and she's middle school and I came up and I quietly said, put that away and pay attention, you would hear after school, that teacher yelled at me. Because that's what they think happens. They don't interpret it very well. And because I did it in class, they did it in front of everybody. When no one else, I did it when no one else was looking, but they can't see that. So don't believe everything they tell you. Teens rely on the amygdala, the emotional part of the brain, to make good decisions. And I just absolutely, anybody want to argue with that teens can be irrational and overly emotional? We'd have our daughter would come home and she would come, and she would come upstairs and go in her room. And I'm like, what just came in the door? And then about 5 or 6 minutes she'd come out and she'd come give us a hug and say hi. And my thought was, I don't know what drug she has up there, but actually I'd like it. Because something changed. But no, it's just their ability to calm down for a second. We'd like to do a little video clip for you, and you're probably going to have to do this over there. This is the story of a genius, an incredible genius.
So, what would the brain of a genius look like? What if he was a teenager? We brought child prodigy Michael Carney to Boston, along with his father, for a unique test. No one had looked inside the working brain of a genius before. Would Yergel and Todd see more connections or cortical area? And would his brain function more like an adult or a teenager? He's been called one in a billion.
No.
In 1994,
Yes.
Michael was the youngest person ever to graduate from college, the tender age of 10. It was his third of 4 Guinness World Records.
Michael Kevin Kearney, cum laude.
I was the youngest person to graduate from high school at 6. Also at 6, I was the youngest person to enter college. At 10, the youngest person to graduate from college, and at 14, I was the youngest person with a master's degree. It's I'm a 32-bit kid in an 8-bit world. I've always had to balance the adult and the child side. I still play video games, read comic books, all that sort of regular kid stuff. It's sort of odd because when I do act normal, when I do act like a regular kid, they say, "Oh, you're so immature." Duh, I'm 15. And then when I act adult, they say, "Oh, you have no social life."
Michael is what's known as an omnibus prodigy. He excels at whatever he sets his mind to. His IQ goes beyond anything measurable. When we took Michael to see Dr. Yergel and Todd, she wasn't quite sure what she'd see.
One question we'd like to be able to answer is, how is a genius different than a normal in terms of brain processing? And one way that we think this might occur is that the networks, that the brain connections are different in individuals who are gifted or exceptional.
The team will give Michael different kinds of tasks and then record what areas of his brain become active. With his impressive mental abilities, they expect his frontal lobe to override the more emotional reactions of his amygdala.
How you doing, Michael? Okay. Okay, Michael, the table will move now. Okay.
They start by asking Michael to name as many words as he can that start with a given letter, which utilizes his intellect.
Wrong.
He does extremely well.
Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Okay.
Okay, it's just gonna be a minute. I need to look at these.
Next, he looks at photographs of people and interprets the emotion on their faces. This one requires more subjective judgment, and Michael has some trouble. The results of Michael's tests led Jurgel and Todd to some intriguing observations.
The emotional task showed that he performed very much like a typical adolescent, and that is his amygdala activated, but his frontal lobes did not significantly activate. Whereas when we asked him to carry out a word production task, Michael completed this task predominantly with his frontal lobes. So on the task that was more cognitive, he was very adult looking, and on the task that was very emotional, he looked very much like an adolescent. We really don't know why Michael is as bright as he is, why he can process information as quickly as he can. We can certainly say that the percentage of brain volume that includes frontal cortex is greater. So perhaps he has more network capacity in that region of the brain.
So perhaps a superior intellect is a combination of activating more gray matter, or cortex, and having more connections. Regardless of brain power, it takes time for emotion and intellect to connect and create maturity.
It takes time for emotion and intellect to connect. So here's what's interesting. It is possible that a young person could be 6 feet tall, but have the emotional maturity of someone who is much younger. Mm-hmm. You can't say, oh, look, you're 6 feet tall, you should be more mature. And the age doesn't make a lot of difference either, because at what age does the neocortex begin to mature? I'll give you an interesting fact here. It's a difference between male and female. So when does the female neocortex begin to mature?
17.
17? Nope. But good guess. I appreciate you starting. Anybody else? The female cortex, neocortex. 15, actually a little earlier, 12 to 13. Okay, it starts. Now it will vary among different students. Some will be much more mature than others, and that's just the way genetic works. And it's kind of good that it develops in females first, because the neocortex is the part that says, no, I'm not going to engage in that behavior for possible consequences. Okay? When does the neocortex develop in boys?
20.
30.
I don't know yet.
Yeah, never. I heard that. Okay, so
We don't know yet.
it's 18 to 21. There's a big difference in there, which is why 17 and 18-year-old boys really have the emotional maturity of a 12 or 13-year-old girl. But they're just in bigger bodies with testosterone makes them dangerous. Okay? You can laugh at any time. It's okay. Okay, it's all right. All right, we want to show you this slide because it's very important to us, because sometimes teenagers don't really understand that their brains aren't done. All right? Over here is a 15-year-old heavy drinker. And over here is a non-drinker. What we're doing is we're checking out, thank you, we're using heat sensitive to determine how much energy is being used by parts of the brain. They've been assigned the same task. And this is the brain of a kid that's been drinking. Okay? Now, someone who's 30, the damage isn't as much. But for middle schoolers, and we show this, my wife shows this to her students for this reason, they need to know what the damage is. Okay, it's going to be tough to do with this many people, so I need your help. Look at someone nearby. Could be a friend you brought with or whatever else like. Okay, and I'm going to ask you to stand up. Okay, and I'm going to stand on a chair, and hopefully I won't fall over so you can see me. So everybody stand up. Did you know that middle schoolers' tailbones aren't done developing yet, which is why they squirm? Did you know their kneecaps aren't even fully developed yet? They're not done. Turn to the other person and have one person looking this way, one person looking this way as best you can. Okay? The person on this side, you're going to go first. Person on that side, you're going to go back and forth. We're going to play a kind of a game called Rally Robin, but it's like ping pong. So the person on the side is going to say something. The person on this side is going to say something back, something different, and you're going to go back and forth like you're volleying a ping pong ball. All right, so come here with me, okay? So we're going to ask you something that drives you nuts about teenagers. So I would say they're emotional, and you would then say what else can drive you nuts about teenagers, especially middle schoolers.
What else can drive you nuts?
Yeah, no, something else.
I don't have any teenagers yet.
No, not yet. Congratulations. So then you're going. So he would come back with something. Thank you very much. All right, you got it? You got 30 seconds to see how many you can come up with. Ready? Go.
I got a 12-year-old.
It's going to hit. Male or female?
Female.
Okay. Oh, 13.
Following direction.
13 to 15 is when they go nuts. And stop. If we just took up your brain, we would see your brain firing and using up all kinds of calories and water, which is kind of cool because when you think, you're actually burning calories. It's a way to lose weight. How cool is that? You just lost some calories. You're welcome. All right? So have a seat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see if you said any of the following things. Their problem-solving ability, judgment, planning, self-monitoring, personality, and/or their emotions. Anybody say anything that along those lines? Okay, how about the other half? Their ability to organize, pay attention, concentration, awareness of their own ability, self-control, and their ability to do the right thing. Does anybody else have some issues on that side? Okay, this is all controlled by this, which isn't done yet. It's not even done in boys until high school. Yeah, I'm just like, oh no, I saw that. It's the CEO of the brain, okay? Takes care of these things, but this is my favorite quote. It's sort of unfair to expect teens to have adult levels of organizational skills and decision making before their brains are finished being built. Now let me say this again. This is the thing that my wife and I knew about, but our kids still would do stuff that would drive us nuts. It would be so funny, I'd dismiss soccer practice at the middle school. The kids would all run off, and I look, jackets everywhere. Stuff everywhere. And it's like, but I remember doing the same thing. Now, to expect kids to remember to get their jacket is kind of unreasonable. So you don't yell at them if they forget it. You know that they did. But if they lose something, you still make them responsible for it. But don't yell at them because that's kind of normal. Okay? I think you're up. Okay. It's my wife's turn, and she's going to talk about some important stuff, and I have no idea where I'm going to put this, but I'll let her do it.
I'm going to sit it in here. Okay. This is my 17th year teaching middle school, and my hair is completely white. I just dye it. And having survived through 2 middle schoolers myself, I absolutely love it. As a matter of fact, teaching middle school and having them at home, I have to say they actually behave better at school. And high schoolers as well. They actually behave better at school. They come home and they kind of unload on you. So don't be too stressed. I've had a lot of parents say, I'll say good things about their child. And they're like, are you sure you're talking about my child? I don't think I recognize that. So there's a lot of typical adolescent behavior. And we as middle school teachers and high school teachers have to remind ourselves all the time of the things that we just told you, of all the things that they do all the time that drive us crazy, such as inattention to details and making careless mistakes in work. I don't know how many times have you said, have you checked over your work? Are you making careless mistakes? Sustaining attention. Attention span is very short. Attention span of my 7th graders is about the same of a 1st or 2nd grader. And so I know that as my teaching, I have to change activities frequently. Keeps me awake and keeps them awake as well. Seems not to listen. Is your child ever like that? Mm-hmm. And I think technology makes that worse. If there's cell phones in front of them, you almost have to, say, take their hand and say, look at me, I'm talking to you. So just make sure if you're talking to them and they're not looking at you, there's a very good chance they are not listening. Fails to follow instructions or finish work. And like Dave said, just be sure you're not giving them too many tasks to do. Just go send them to do 1 or 2 things, not a list. Just short-term things. Severely unorganized. What was interesting about our children, they seemed organized at school, but their room was an absolute disaster. And so we had heard from other parents who had already gone through what we've gone through. You have to pick your battles. So is the room going to be a battle, or are you just going to let it go? So what we decided to do was, versus putting hazard tape over the front, is okay, your room is your business. I'm going to shut the door. It's your room. But if you're going to have friends over for the weekend to visit, they are not allowed in your room. So the only way you can have friends over is to, clean up. And they both started, at a certain age, started dumping their clothes on the floor. It made me so mad. I spent all this time washing clothes, and I go up there, and they're literally, it said they have drawers. We can't afford dressers, but their clothes are piled up on the floor, and they just go through it and pick out stuff. So I said, laundry's over. And I think both kids were probably around ninth grade, said, okay, you're doing your own laundry. And our son played football, and there were times he was, digging, smelly stuff out. I'm not, when you start putting stuff in the dresser drawers, then I'll start washing it. So sort of, with one thing you're wanting to do anyways to build independence, you want your child to go to college knowing how to do laundry. So some of those are things that you want them to do anyway, but you're letting them know this is your choice to be like this, therefore this is the consequence of what you're doing. And it helps you out too. You don't have to do their laundry, so it's kind of like, yes. Difficulties with schoolwork or homework, and I'm going to talk about that more in detail in a little bit. Loses things. If your child loses things, that's a very normal middle school thing to do. And like I said, we have to remind ourselves that is normal after we finish yelling about it. Easily distracted, forgetful about daily activities. Those are very normal things. So, what if these things are really severe? And that's what happened with our daughter. When she was in middle school, she made A's and B's in like 6th and 7th grade. Pretty good student. Bless you. She gets to 8th grade, she starts to struggle a little bit. She's making C's in some of her classes, and she kept saying, I just can't stay with the teacher. They're talking and my mind's drifting. We're like, okay, well, we gave her some graphic organizers, ways to pay attention. She gets into high school, and she's crying. I feel stupid. She gets a report card. She had an F and a D and a couple of B's and C's, which was totally not like her. And she'd say, Mom, I go talk to the teacher, ask for help. I get back to my seat. I have no idea what the teacher said. I can't remember. I just feel so stupid. And we knew she wasn't stupid. I mean, she wasn't super bright, but she wasn't stupid. And so, just observing her, I'd watch her sitting at the table doing her homework, and she'd do a little bit. Next thing I know, she's on the floor with the dog. Like, I thought you were doing your homework. Well, I'm just taking a break. And then she'd go back and do her work. And really, 2 minutes later, I come back, she's back on the floor with the dog again. I don't know how she got anything done. And so from talking to her teachers, we said, I think we need to talk to the pediatrician and find out what the issue is, that she just can't focus. It's not your typical, because, they're saying, I actually heard a comedian in the 90s said, are all teenagers ADD? Because of the way they behave. And in some ways they are, because these are also characteristics of ADD. So how do you know if it really is ADD or ADHD? For one thing, if your child was diagnosed at a young age, you don't outgrow this. If they outgrow it, it was immaturity. It wasn't true ADD or ADHD, because ADD and ADHD is a chemical imbalance in the brain. It's a physical problem. Just like if you're a diabetic, you might need insulin. Okay? If you have ADD, you need some kind of treatment to help fix that dopamine thing in the brain. So does your child have an ability to hyperfocus? I know with Bethany, she could literally work on a project. If she really liked it, she wanted to work on a project, she was so hyper-focused, she didn't hear anything. She didn't hear dinner, she didn't hear the phones for you, nothing. She's really hyper-focused to get it done, and she would do a great job, very creative. Do they have above average intelligence? A lot of times students with ADD are very smart, but they just can't focus. It's like, I'm reaching the age now that my eyes are starting to do funky stuff. And the computer, I used to find the computer screen, and now the other day I'm like this, and somebody said, you're really too close to the computer screen. I can't see it anymore. And that's how it kind of is with a student with ADD. They just can't bring it into focus, so what they're doing is clearly, they can see it clearly. But they also might be very creative. I'm sorry I'm blocking you. Sit back over here. When the inability to focus starts causing problems with their grades, you start to see a decline in their grades, maybe a problem in relationships. Our daughter became very, just a lot of turmoil. She would walk in the door just very angry and mad, and of course, she and I wound up with a lot of arguing matches. We both always had to have the last word, so it would go on until he'd go, that's enough, both of you stop it. I was stressed out, she was stressed out. And then when she actually started taking the medicine for this, that calmed as well. It just seemed to calm the volatile nature. So, and safety. They do say that students that have ADD unmedicated or untreated actually have like 400% more accidents. Because if you already think about, you have a teenager behind the wheel, and what are they doing? Their cell phone's going off, and they sort of have this mentality, if the cell phone rings, I have to answer it. No, you don't. We actually told our daughter to put it in the trunk, and she's like, you're kidding me. But that, you know, anything like that to cause them distractions, plus if they have another teenager in the car, you can imagine that, plus ADD. Don't want to ride with that person. And then there's self-esteem. She just always felt like, Mom, I'm so stupid. I'm trying so hard, and I just can't be successful. And some famous people, you know, Albert Einstein, Bill Cosby, Walt Disney. I mean, there are very famous people that actually had this. I think sometimes ADD has a negative rap, and parents look at it as a negative thing. It's not. It's not. No, I'm no more embarrassed to say my child has ADD than if my child had diabetes or has bad vision. So, is that the last one? And then, I'll share this with you. In the process of testing her, I'm reading through all the surveys, and we both talked about it, and I'm like, I am every single thing on here. And if you know anything about ADD, it also tends to run in families. And so I started on medication about 6 months after my daughter did. And Dave will tell you, okay, what are you doing over here? And it really made a change in our marriage and in my family relationships, because before I was like a spinning top. I could never sit down. I never watched TV. I couldn't sit through a whole show without getting running around. And of course, women are good at multitasking, so I'm doing 50,000 things at one time. But after I actually sat down and watched the TV show, and he's like, you know, is this really you? And I just think overall, and I can tell you from someone who's taken the medication, that it really was putting on glasses. I was able to sit and actually complete an email without being distracted. My classroom went from a total disaster to organized, just because I could get my thoughts together. And I'm not promoting medication, because I know a lot of people are not for medication. There's something also called biofeedback you can do. Just do yourself a favor. If you think your child is suffering from this, just go to the pediatrician or the doctor and talk about it, and let them have the teachers fill out an analysis to give their opinion. And then from there you can go, do I want to go the medication route? Do I want to go biofeedback? Is there something else I can do? But speaking from a teacher, please don't let your child go with no treatment. Because that'd be just like the doctor telling you have an illness and you do nothing to help it. Because what you're doing, you're depriving your child of success. So just think about what you could do to help. And also another thing too is, please don't give your children medication vacations when they come back to school. So many parents some of them take them off in the summer, which I think is fine, no problem with that. But then when school starts back, they're like, I think I'll just try you without it. No. So because they have to really have that in order to focus and pay attention. Oops, I'm not supposed to show you that yet. Okay, getting sleep. Here's another issue that can cause problems. So I guess you already know the answer. Okay, so how many hours do you think most middle schoolers or high schoolers get? How much do they need? Is that the first question? How much do they need? 9 1/4, yes. Wow, you guys are so honest smart. Cheating. I know you're so smart. About 9 1/4 is what they need. How much do they get? You haven't seen that yet. Y'all are generous. Oh, it's on their notes? Okay, darn, it's on your notes. Okay, they get somewhere between 6 and 7, hopefully. And actually what's happening, I talked to a lot of parents of 6th graders. Anybody here have a 6th grader? And you may have noticed this happening with them. Where, as in elementary school, I'm doing it again. No, you're fine. You put them, they go to bed, or you put them in their room, and then you're like, I still hear them in there doing stuff at 10 o'clock. Go to bed. So you probably go in there several times saying, go to bed. And they're like, I can't go to sleep. And they're telling you the truth. The time clock actually starts to get later and later as they get older and older. So that's why, your 17 or 18-year-old can sleep till 1. I don't know about you, but I cannot do that. I cannot sleep till 1. But they can literally go to bed at midnight and sleep till 1. So the time clock actually shifts, and when they get to be about 24 or 25, then it comes kind of back around again. Okay, I don't know if you, during your teenage years, how many of you could stay up late, 1 or 2 o'clock? Can you still do that? Not me. Okay, 9:30, 10. What time is it? Is it bedtime? So the time clock reverts back as you get older. Here's the thing, we've already talked about how the middle schooler already has issues with paying attention, being able to focus, being able to stay on task, get things done. Well, then when you add this to it, sometimes lack of sleep actually can mimic ADD. I'll have a conference with a parent and we'll say to them, well, they can't focus in class, they're not getting their work done, are they getting enough sleep? And the parent will say, well, of course they are. I put them to bed at 9 and the child's already told me that they have video games in their room and they're playing until 2 in the morning. So sometimes when mom and dad goes to sleep, you don't know what's happening with the child. So if they are having issues sleeping and not getting enough sleep, whether their cell phone's going off or whatever else is happening, and I want to talk about this a little bit, and this is also for us as well, and that is TVs, computer monitors, both have a blue glow that actually is still emitting even when the device is off. If you don't believe me, go home and turn it off, make it really dark and you can see it. The best thing to do if there is a TV or a monitor in the bedroom is to unplug it or cover it with a blanket or something so it's not emitting that glow, because it does inhibit getting into the deep levels of sleep that you need in order to grow and to have a better memory. Same thing with cell phones. And our daughter said that we were the meanest parents in the world because we gave her a cell phone curfew. But you can check your child's records. We had Verizon. You can call up Verizon or go online and see what all they've been doing. We found out she was texting at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So the cell phone had a place it had to go. So at nighttime, she went to bed at 11. She put her cell phone on the little table at the stairs, and that's where it stayed until she got up in the morning. And then we did that through her senior year, and we did the same thing with our son. And so, like I said, we're the meanest parents in the world, but it's okay because she's now teaching and graduated and she likes me, so you get over it. And also, it's also true for us too. I know I have a dumb phone. I haven't graduated to a smart yet. And when it dies, it buzzes and makes noises, and maybe yours does the same thing. So it's better. It's actually better for our own, aging brains to also try to turn those things off at night and give your brain a chance to rest and rejuvenate so you can get enough sleep. And how does it help you to know this? First of all, we would just like to say kudos to you for being here, because I think you understand that your child between 6th grade and 12th grade is going through enormous changes in their brains. And we appreciate you being here to find out more about this. Because I think it's really cool to know that they really do have a brain and what's really happening in that brain. So thank you for being here. How is this going to help you when you leave here? First of all, you need to know that what you do matters. Especially in Fort Mill, if you visit the elementary schools, it is buzzing with parents. And then what happens when you get to 6th grade? What happens when you get to 9th grade? It's even worse. It's like there are no parents. Of course, when you get to high school, they don't want you there. It's like you're an alien and they don't even want you nearby. But so there's some things you can do without being a helicopter parent. I know Dave, as a college professor, will tell you there's still parents in the college level that are still helicopter. So I'm not encouraging helicopter, but I am encouraging shadowing them and keeping up with what they're doing. How many of you have ever been to a parent portal? Yay! Wait for you. Go to the parent portal and check on their grades. This is so awesome. No more do you have to wait until report cards to find out how your child is doing. So you don't have to check it 8 times a day. You don't have to overdo it, but check parent portal and find out what their grades are. How many of you have ever been to your teacher's website? Okay, if your hand's not up, you need to go sometime, because most of us are made to post those things. We keep up with those things. Keep in mind, we do have a life, and we may not update them daily, but they're actually pretty good indicators of what's going on. So if you want your kids to think you're really smart, you go to the website and you maybe print out their sheet. You don't have to tell them you've done this. Just go print out the sheet so you have it. And so they'll come home and you go, you have any homework? They go, no. I said, no, I don't have it. I did it at school. I hate that. No, they did not do it at school. I did it at school. And you go, you have a test tomorrow. And so they'll just look at you like, how do you know this stuff? You just say, I'm so smart. But you've been to the website to find out what's going on. And that is the other thing. If they do say, I did it at school, what do you think you could ask them to verify that? Show it to me. Oh, I can't find it. Well, if you can't find it, maybe we need to do it again. So don't ever accept the answer, I did it at school. And if they don't have any homework, what can they do? Read. They can read, because reading actually boosts all types of learning. So anything they can do with reading. Help them plan and organize. We're in the process now, we're getting ready to do the science fair. I have science projects due in a week. And, we gave them a schedule of what they should be doing all along. And I can guarantee you, if there were no parents doing anything to supervise them, I'd have students that still hadn't started. So that's why we as teachers have to do little checkpoints. So you can help them plan and organize their time because they really don't have the mental scheduling in order to be successful. Some do. You may be really fortunate to have a child that can really do that. So count your blessings because they're not all like that. And again, it's like I said, ask to see their homework. There's some new research about homework. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of homework. We live through it. You know, we live through, especially high school, taking, what was it, AP calculus and like 3 to 4 hours of homework. We're not big fans of homework. But homework is practice. And we tell this to our students. We say, okay, you're on the basketball team. Which is better for you? Is it better for you to practice 1 hour a day for the week or 15 minutes a day? What do you think?
15 minutes a day.
15 minutes a day. So we say, okay, you have a big test on Friday. Don't cram the night before. Study little 15-minute snippets all week. Do they listen to me? No. So maybe you can help us out there by suggesting they do the same thing. But what happens with the homework is, and we're confessing it's happened in our household, you know, homework becomes a battle. There becomes a clashing of wills. There becomes yelling, and it just gets worse and worse. And what research has just recently found out is, and Dave mentioned it, the emotional part of the teenage brain kicks in first, and it has to go through that part of the brain before it gets to the learning part. So guess what's going to happen if you and your child are fighting over homework? Are they going to learn anything? No. They're just going to be angry. And maybe it's happened to you. Has anything ever happened to you on the way to work that made you angry? Somebody cut you off? Or, I don't know, somebody did something to you that makes you angry? How are you when you first start at your job? You know, it's hard to get rid of that adrenaline in your body from getting angry. So they actually say if a child is stressed, angry, or upset, they cannot learn. So what does that mean? Make homework time as stress-free as possible, and if it's not, it's really a waste of time. It's a waste of time. So whatever you have to do. Our daughter was so, I don't know, I guess strong-willed. I'd always thought when I had a child, I'd homeschool. When she was 2, she already let me know. She had nothing to do with me helping her do anything. And so with homework, I had to make sure that I backed off, and sometimes if she needed help, we had to hire a tutor. I knew how to do math, but it couldn't come from me. I don't know, maybe you felt that too. Your child, sometimes it's just that clash between the two of you, and if you get angry and try to help, then that gets rid of all learning. So it might be better to hire a tutor to help out. So do your best to make homework a stress-free environment. You can't be too loving. Now you can be too loving like in public. You don't want to kiss them and that kind of stuff when they're with their friends, but you still need to tell them and show them that you love them however you can do that. Even when we were fighting, I'll be honest with you, Bethany and I fought from probably 10th grade through senior year. In fact, it was so bad her senior year that I was ready to help her move out. You know how you go through sadness to going to college? We were like, out. You know, moving your stuff out. We couldn't wait to get her out. And then with my son, it was different because he's just so low-key and, and likable. I cried when he left. But when she left, I cried about 10 minutes, and then I was over it. But see, now we really are becoming best friends. People had told me that, but now we really are gelling. So there is still hope. Try to give them specific feedback and try to make it, even if they do something little, say something good. Even if you have to dig to find it, try to say something nice about them. And staying involved, and you're doing this. You're here tonight, so I'm probably preaching to the choir. But stay involved in what they're doing. Get to know their friends' families. Both of our kids, our daughter and our son, when prom time came, because now they do all kinds of crazy stuff, prom night, sleepovers, and all kinds of stuff. And so when my son wanted to go, we said, well, we want the name of the family. And he thought that was ridiculous. I am 18 years old, and you want the name of the family I'm staying with? Yes. we own your car. And so, we called and talked to him, and everything was cool, but he still was he just could not believe I did that. But there was, an article in the paper just a week ago of students who got arrested from drinking alcohol, and I just would love to know, did any of the parents call to find out if that parent was there before? And maybe it could have been alleviated. So I don't care how old they are, you're still in charge. Find out more about their families. Try to spend time together, and usually we had to go out of town to do that. When you've got video games and cell phones and everything else, maybe get out of town once in a while. You do have to set limits. They want you to set rules. Sometimes it actually helps them get out of a bad situation if they can say, my dad would kill me if I did that. Or, no, you can't come to my house. My parents would be really upset. They let them use you as a way out. So, because it gives them some little added bonus. Did you know that you have full control over cell phones in terms of turning things off and on? I've had parents say in conferences, well, I can't take away their phone. I need that to get in touch with them. Well, do you have to text? No. Do they have to send pictures? No. You can set all kinds of parameters on their cell phone where they can only receive calls. You're like, yes, the phone, you can still talk into it. Still works when you talk into it. And my opinion with all the things with sexting, that's the best way to get rid of sexting. You just call the phone company and say, you can't submit pictures. They can take pictures with their phone, but they can't submit them. Or you can delete texting. There goes sexting. Okay, so to me, that's a pretty easy solution. And also, do not hesitate to take it away. If you can't take it away, you can take away part of the privileges of having a cell phone. But I can tell you, as much as I would like to think about it, my kids do not come to school every day to see me. They don't come to school every day to learn science or anything else. They come to school to do what? See their friends. They're so excited after the holidays to come back to see their friends. And so one of the best things you can do is to limit that. And so don't be afraid to take away cell phones. They do not have to have it, even though they say they will die without it. And be firm but fair, and try not to give in to their manipulation. And I tell you what, especially girls, when they're in the drama years, they can manipulate like you wouldn't believe. So just try to, what we called it was a broken record. She would come up with one reason, and we just say the same thing back again. But blah, 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 we just say the same thing, just keep saying it. And finally she gets tired of it and goes off and does something else. Stops berating it. And again, be the parent. They have friends, and I can tell you that. You want your child to love you, and you want your child to like you, but it's okay if they don't. And like I said, now that she's almost 23, she likes me again, so there is hope. I love this diagram because, raise your hand if you want your child to live with you when they're 30. Yeah, most of us don't want to live with us when they're 30.
You can have ours.
That's right. So I found this diagram on the internet. I thought it's a really good illustration where, you start together like this. Mama, baby, you're together all the time. But as the child matures, you kind of stay put. But they're maturing away from you. And that's what you want to happen. The 6th grade, 7th grade years are really tough in terms of, actually a lot of your butting heads is they're wanting their independence, but you're trying to decide how much to give them. And so you gradually continue to give them independence until they become an adult. So it's really healthy for them to push your buttons and to want their freedom. That's very, very normal. And give them space to grow and resist micromanaging. So again, shadowing them. So because a lot of parents, especially like 7th grade, will say, I'm done with them. Like, you're done with them, they're 12. Don't be done with them. You need to manage them, but just don't micromanage every little single thing. And if they come home telling you things that happened in school, don't immediately email the teacher. Let some time pass and talk to them again, or talk to the teacher and find out what really happened in the classroom. Don't micromanage. And then sometimes you have to explain your decisions. Our son would always behave better if we told him why. If we just told him why. This is what we want you to do, and this is the reason. He'd go, okay. And he was fine with it. But he wasn't fine with it. He'd keep pestering us until we gave him. So try to use logical consequences. Like our daughter was texting at 2 in the morning, we took away texting. And also, the more you can, if you use logical consequences, you don't have to get as emotional about it. Say, okay, well, you're texting at 2 in the morning. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to lose that privilege, and you don't have to yell and scream about it. I said, try to talk when you're not angry, which I had a hard time with. This is a tough one, distinguishing between immaturity and defiance. If it's flat out defiance, That is not the middle school, that's not the adolescent brain, that's defiance. So that needs to be treated as such. And so it's kind of a hard time, a fine line sometimes distinguishing between the two. Giving them real life problem solving as much as you can. This is a big thing trend that I've noticed over the last 5 to 6 years. I kind of call it it's like the microwave group of students. Took them to the library and wanted them to use a book, and they looked at me like I was speaking another language. I want to Google it. I want to look up everything and get it just like that. And so a lot of times they will ask a ridiculous question. And I don't want to say as a teacher, that was a ridiculous question. So what I try to do is I try to ask it right back to them. Well, what do you think the answer is? And that's one of the best things you can do as a parent. Do not answer everything they ask you. If you think it's a question that they can solve themselves, put it back to them and tell them to think about it. Even if they ask you something that you think that they have the ability to look up, let them look it up at home. Don't tell them everything. And giving them an allowance to buy stuff. That was probably one of the best things we did in our household, because they want us to go, maybe McDonald's or something. And when we finally started saying, all right, you have an allowance. Well, if you want to go, you have to spend your money. Okay, we'll eat at home. It's really quickly where they change what they want to do when it's coming out of their pocket. They have a video game they want, let them earn it. And we have found that when they earn it, they value it more than if it was just given to them. Try to teach them some money management. And don't give up on them. Don't expect them to think or reason like you do, and that's probably the hardest thing to remember. Just because they're big doesn't mean they think like you. And in terms of failing, if they fail a test or a quiz, okay, deal with it. You didn't study, have to come up with why they failed. But for heaven's sakes, don't let them fail the class. Once they get to that point at the end of a quarter where they're failing the class, the hole gets deeper and deeper and harder to get out of it. And so, that's where checking the parent portal, making sure they're not starting to fail. If you notice they start to fail, please schedule a conference and go talk to the teachers and find out what you together can do to help that child succeed. So don't let them dig themselves into a hole. Don't give up on them. Even if they're seniors in high school, don't give up on them. And allow them to make mistakes. So we have to try not to be on them all the time if they make mistakes, because that's where you want them to make mistakes at home, where they can learn the best. And the nice thing is this too will pass. And yeah, all the kind of crazy stuff that they come up with. And Dave likes to do the ending. I'll let him do the ending.
I just, working with middle schoolers, this picture I'm going to, you started with that, asking what they think they're not. And it's really funny, I've seen them do amazing things. I worked at a camp in the summer, and I watched 2 kids, someone snuck an arrow out of archery, and I watched 2 kids fight over it, okay? Mine, no, mine. And anybody see a problem? Okay. And I'm trying to get there before the one wins that has the point. And I almost made it. But this is a great picture that explains everything we know about middle schoolers. Especially boys. And so, they got it stuck it through the back of the chair. Maybe that's why these chairs have little bars. Can't get it out. And we've got the guy with a hacksaw, the nurse, in case there's something else that goes wrong. Gave him something to suck on. I just think that's the greatest picture ever. Explains everything we're doing about it. You have a bibliography. There's some articles that we've read, but we've also given you some books that we have read and we like, and they're more information for you. And so we will hang around for 3 to 5 minutes if you have any specific questions. Let me do this for you. We researched this, we have studied it, but we're not doctors. We don't have all the answers. Okay? And like you, we did trial and error and managed to find a couple things, but we're happy to help you out. Our emails are also on that thing, so we're happy to answer some questions for you. Are there any questions you'd like to ask right now out loud for the good of the order? Someone has to go first. Really, we've answered everything for you.